Whenever I mention suburbs like Broadmeadows or Melton, the first reaction is always a hard no. The crime is insane there, April. How can you even think about buying? But what if I told you that some of Melbourne's most expensive suburbs today were once the dangerous areas of the past? Today we are talking about the reputation discount, why some suburbs are actually undervalued just because of stereotype, and how you can spot the entry timing before the crowd floods into the market. I'm giving you my checklist to separate a dead-end suburb from a total game changer, so you can tell the difference between a hidden gem with a bad name and a suburb that actually a trap. Dead-end suburbs are those spots that simply won't change. There are no major job hubs nearby, no government infrastructure planned, and the demographic remains unchanged. That bad tag isn't just a face, it's in the bones. So what exactly is the game changer? To the average buyers, the area still feels dangerous, but the underlying logic has already flipped. These are the areas seeing massive government investment, a shifting workforce, and a new generation of middle-class family moving in for affordability. The reputation is lagging behind the reality, and that gap is exactly where the opportunity hides. So, how do you spot the shift before the rest of the market? Here is my 4-step check. First, look at the geography and price gap. Take Frankston for example. During COVID, I went there for my second job. I've always known it had a stunning coastline. People even call it the most accessible beach in Melbourne because of that direct train line to the CBD. However, sitting in my car that day, looking at the graffiti and the dodgy characters on the street, I finally got why it has such a label for being unsafe. It felt sketchy, and honestly, the vibe was just completely off. But at the same time, it just didn't make sense to me. On one hand, Frankston is the gateway and major service hub for the entire peninsula, very close to Mount Eliza, that fancy suburb where people pay a bit of premium for the lifestyle. But then Frankston itself was still being labeled as a bogan suburb. That reputation is just hard to shake. The reality is, when the inner south becomes untouchable and the surrounding areas are all prestigious suburbs, the market is forced to level up. Eventually, that price gap is just too big to last. People start looking for the next viable entry point, and post-COVID, we finally saw Frankston hit that tipping point and start to catch up. Secondly, watch for the demographic shift. You can usually spot this on the street first. Are the cafes and brunch spots popping up? Is the number of young educated professionals going up? Footscray is a perfect example. 7 to 8 years ago, if you took the train there, you'd see broken street and graffiti everywhere. It felt run down, and most buyers won't even think about an apartment there. But if you walk through Footscray today, you can literally see the shift. It's not just about the streets looking a bit cleaner. It's about who is moving in. I've noticed many young professionals who work in the city choosing to settle here just to be 2 train stops away from the office. These old shops are slowly being replaced by cafes and bubble tea shops. Even at the local fur shops, you usually have to line up just to get a table on weekends. The stigma is still there in people's talk, but on the ground, the whole vibe of the suburb is already changing. I know what some of you are thinking. April, Footscray's prices actually dropped last year, especially for apartments. You're right, but you have to look at what is dropping. High-density apartments are risky anywhere due to oversupply. For gritty old houses to brand-new townhouses, they're all grouped as houses in the data. So the price gap is naturally huge. Footscray is a suburb in transition where values are being re-evaluated. This mix of different property types is exactly why the market feels so shaky right now. Third, track the jobs and the transport connectivity. If the government isn't spending big money, don't buy. Look at Sunshine. For years, a lot of buyers avoided it because of safety concerns and its industrial past. But that's changing fast. The state government is pumping over $4 billion into this suburb. With the new Sunshine Superhub connecting the airport rail and the suburban rail loop, it's no longer just a suburb. It's being rebuilt as the CBD of the West. This kind of investment is physically reshaping the area as we speak. We're seeing a real transition away from its working class roots, with medical staff, young professionals, and families priced out of the inner city market. Sunshine has become a genuine alternative. This massive shift in infrastructure doesn't just change the look of the suburb. It creates a solid foundation that locks in the land value for the next 30 years. Finally, gauge market liquidity. Here's a simple trick. Look at the auction clearance rates and the days on market. If a suburb has a bad name, but the clearance rate is consistently hitting 75%, or if properties are selling in less than 3 weeks, that means the smart money is already there. While the public conversation is still stuck on crime stats from 10 years ago, the actual market data is telling a different story. Professional buyers aren't waiting for the news to confirm a suburb is safe. They use the market numbers as their leading indicators. By the time the mainstream media catches up and calls the suburb the next hotspot, the entire price has usually already shifted. The real opportunity is in spotting that gap between general perception and what is actually happening on the ground. The biggest mistake in real estate isn't buying in a high crime area, it's buying in a value trap. That's an area with no catalyst for growth. The real opportunity lies in distinguishing these traps from underdog suburbs. If you can identify the latter where others are still blinded by old stories, you are essentially profiting from their fear. If you look at the long enough timeline, you'll see this pattern repeating all over Melbourne. There are so many suburbs that used to have notorious reputation but have now completely transformed into vibrant middle-class hotspots. Richmond, Collingwood, and even Footscray. I know you can think of more examples across Melbourne. Which suburb do you think is shedding its old skin right now? Drop it in the comments. Let's see who has the best eye for the next big shift. I'm April. You will have a suburb in mind, but you are not sure if it's a trap or gold mine. Drop the name in the comments. We'll look at the data together. Follow April Talks Aussie for more real talk about the Australian property market.